And actually, some religions continue to treat women as second-class citizens, and it's not just some forms of Islam. I mean, are we going to start banning everybody who doesn't treat women or children or criminals, for that matter, the way we like?
In America, we want people who want to be Americans. We want people who want to come here. We don't say you have to adopt our creed or any particular creed, but we do say if you come here, you need to believe in American exceptionalism.
Megyn Kelly on Fox News grilling Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal for proposing changes in U.S. immigration law that would exclude Muslims who want to impose Sharia. This as the Department of Homeland Security has released yet another 30,000 criminal aliens back onto American streets. Joining me now to talk about our immigration policy, former INS officer Michael Cutler, Skyping in from New York. Michael, in your view, was what Governor Jindal is proposing, is that outrageous?
I don't know if it's outrageous. We have to be very careful. You know, we do celebrate religious freedom and freedom of expression, but I think what he's probably trying to accomplish, and I certainly can't speak for him, but I think he's concerned about people who want to have a system in place that supersedes our system of law and governance. And I understand the concerns. During the Cold War, people that were, self-avowed communist people who wanted to impose communism on us were excluded on ideological grounds. We have to be very careful to what extent we want to do this sort of thing. But if what he's saying, and again, I'm trying to interpret what was said in a brief interview with Megyn Kelly, and I watched the interview last night, I think his concern are that foreign nationals would come to the United States seeking to basically declare our system of law and justice null and void and replace it with Sharia, which certainly would be problematic for the United States. If that's what he's talking about, then I think we need to take a hard look at the possibilities of how we make certain we don't water down our government, our form of justice, and so forth.
Well, you talked about superseding policy and procedure. The irony is those in charge right now are superseding what's on the books. The Department of Homeland Security releasing yet another 30,000 criminal aliens onto the streets. What's going on here?
Anarchy. And, by the way, I have an article about this coming out for Californians for Population Stabilization, capsweb.org. It should be up within a week or so. And I'm calling it in the front door, out the back door. DHS releases 30,000 plus criminal aliens. And the remarkable thing about it is they brag, DHS brag, well, last year we released over 35,000 or 36,000, so we're doing better. While in reality, the only reason they've released fewer is because they're making fewer arrests, because DHS has really put a noose around the enforcement personnel. We all heard what the president had to say to ICE agents. Forget the law, you're going to follow my orders, whether or not they parallel the law or conflict with the law.
All right, boil this down for me, Michael. We got a situation where this administration is releasing criminals. They're criminals already in terms of violating the law, violating immigration law, but these are people who are violent offenders, those with a criminal record, and they're just released out into the society. What does this do to law enforcement and the challenges they face?
And what does it do to community safety? The most likely victims of transnational criminals are the immigrant people that are living in those communities. And it's not just about Latin Americans. It's about people from Russia, the Asian community, the Caribbean community. And if you look at what they did last year, because they're not telling us what crimes these people committed, but what they committed last year, the ones that were released, some were actually in jail for homicide and rape. So we're taking violent people, putting them out into society. In some instances, I understand their governments won't provide passports, but there are ways that immigration can go to the judges and demonstrate a clear danger to public safety and say, look, we must never release these people. To another point you made that's a very important point, we are minimizing the immigration laws and why we have them. Well, if they haven't been convicted of crimes, then we want them here. No, that's wrong. Our entire inspections process is supposed to keep out criminals, terrorists, fugitives, and ultimately people who would compete unfairly with Americans and have other impact. But the number one issue is to keep criminals and terrorists from entering the United States. So by ignoring the immigration laws, ignoring that process of inspections conducted at ports of entry, what we're really doing is making it that much easier for those people who wish us ill to come here and ply their trades.
One of those on the front lines, Gila County, Arizona Sheriff Paul Babu, says President Obama essentially has prompted the largest prison break in history. Do you share that assessment?
Oh, absolutely. And you know what's so remarkable? I was on with Neil Cavuto a couple of years ago in 2013, and they had just released, if you remember, I think it was 68,000 criminal aliens because of the sequestration of funding. And I had predicted, give them a few months, they'll announce some major operation, in this case, Operation Crosscheck. They'll arrest a couple of thousand aliens and declare a success. The people that were in custody were released. We brought them back. God knows how many people they injured or attacked while they were at liberty. But then they announced it through a press release. That's exactly what they did, because just a week earlier, they were brought up just over 2,000 aliens. And then guess what? It turned out that 15 of those aliens had been given lawful status under the DACA, the Deferred Action Program. And supposedly, these are all kids looking for a break. Give us a break. We're talking about criminals. One of the DACA applicants, by the way, was arrested with a firearm. So if you look at what the administration's priorities are, it certainly isn't the American people. A quick point. They keep having meetings about stakeholders on immigration. You know who's never invited to the table? Representatives of we the people, or representatives of the employees that work at DHS trying desperately to enforce those laws and are being prevented from doing so.
Michael, a minute remains. Positive solutions. What is your solution to what we're confronting right now?
Enforce the law. Hire agents, not in a mad dash. Hire the agents. Give them the jail spaces that they need. End visas for countries to take back their own citizens until they get the message and start taking their own people back when they're ordered deported from the United States. But basically, understand that our immigration laws serve as our first impression for the rest of the world. This administration has convinced the world that violating our laws, violating our borders will not only be tolerated but rewarded. That's one hell of a message at a time when they're violating, actually, the findings and recommendations of the 9/11 Commission that warned that it wasn't just the Mexican border, but that most of the terrorists had come through airports and then disappeared into communities around the country. It's time we went back and took a hard look at the 9/11 Commission and got immigration back on track so we don't wind up calling DHS, as I've come to call it, the Department of Homeland Surrender.
Michael Cutler, as always, we appreciate your insights. Enforce the law. Imagine that. America's Forum will continue after this update.